Today I'm doing a K-drama review on the new K-drama Startup from a business major's perspective because I was a business major. You might be like, wow, this channel really has no theme. She does K-pop dance cardio workouts, she does K-drama fashion videos, she does apartment decor. So I'm going to continue this theme of having no theme by bringing to you this review of Startup. So join me on sipping on some tea while we chat about whether we are Team Dosan or are we Team Mr. Han. Also, I put on my best business bitch outfit for this video because why the fuck not? I'm going to start off by saying that I absolutely love this drama. Of course, every K-drama has its flaws, but I think the setup was so well written and how each character is kind of interconnected. And I think the writer did a really good job of making it very hard for the audience to hate a specific character. Well, except like the stepdad and the dumbass son who just both have the worst small dick energy and just want control and power over women. So you know what? Fuck them. At times the drama makes you want to hate NJ or the mom or even Mr. Han at times, but it's just really hard because the writers did such a good job at portraying them as these characters with these flaws, and they're trying to work through these deeply personal issues. So the first topic I'm going to dive right into is Mr. Han and the grandma's storyline, and to me, I think that was the gold of this drama. I think the top 3 times that I cried during this K-drama was all scenes regarding the grandma. So I absolutely love the grandma as this character. I think the first scene was when Mr. Han was leaving the bus station and she came and gave him shoes even after their argument with the money, and I was just like sobbing like a baby at that point. That was like a really like heart-wrenching scene for me to watch. I think the second one was when NJ finally went back home to their old house to see the grandma, and the grandma was just so happy to see her. The third one was when Dosan developed Nungil for the grandma, and the grandma is using it on the beach that they were on, and she just takes a picture of the scenery of, you know, Dosan and Dami together, and she's just so happy. And I think those 3 scenes were definitely the biggest tearjerkers for me. I think their relationship was a true relationship of just unconditional love, support, and pure selflessness. I think growing up as an orphan, Mr. Han had this very pessimistic view of the world in that, you know, only you can fend for yourself out there. You know, this is kind of a journey you have to take on yourself. Like, it's you against the entire world. Like, no one's out there to help you. And I feel like he believed that the only way to survive in this world is to be selfish. And honestly, that's a damn good description of what capitalism is. I think the grandma is the figure in his life that teaches him what pure selflessness really means, and I think deep down inside Mr. Han has that selflessness rooted in him, but he is just so afraid to show it because he's afraid of being vulnerable. I think a lot of people would say that Mr. Han should have ended up with Dami, but the way his character was set up would make it feel out of character almost, because I think Mr. Han might feel like he's like selfish on the outside, but deep down inside he's just a saint, just like the grandma, and the grandma saw right through that even when he was younger, and that's why hence she gave him the nickname Good Boy. People said he gave up too easily on Dami, but I feel like that was so in character of him because he comes to the realization first that her true feelings are for Dosan, and he didn't want to get in the way of that because of his own feelings, and that was like just a pure act of selflessness. I think that a lot of times in K-drama love triangles, the second male lead, or I don't even know if he's the second male lead in this drama because he's such a good character, but a lot of times the second male lead, it comes off too aggressive or too pushy or does these like crazy things to try to break up the main couple, but Mr. Han's character was just such like this internally deeply selfless character. But it is a little bit weird that even after 3 years he didn't make like any moves on her. For example, in a scene after like Dosan gets back from San Francisco, he's like, they're in the elevator together, and he makes this comment, like Mr. Han makes this comment implying that he and Dami are now together, but he does that, but he feels so bad right afterwards that he automatically like calls like Dami afterwards and was like, hey, I think I accidentally said something that might have led Dosan to believe there's a misunderstanding between us. So I think that was such a good scene to reflect just the type of person that Mr. Han is, that even if he speaks out of emotion or out of passion in one moment, he feels so bad about what he did that he will automatically go and correct that. I think Mr. Han's character development was really, really well written, as from someone who feels like he can only fend for himself in this lonely world to someone who is able to outwardly express his selflessness, even if that means being vulnerable and potentially being hurt. Okay, second topic, Daomi's character. I'm going to first start off by saying I absolutely love Daomi's character. I feel like her character really hits home for me because I also come from a family that was broken up, and I also came from a very basic public school background before I got into Penn. I felt like, similar to Daomi, I always had these big dreams, but I always felt like this strong imposter syndrome. Like, there was one scene where the Samsung tech team was talking about all these technical terms, and Daomi was outside just thinking to herself, you know, what does that word mean? What does this word mean? Like, when I got into business school, I was like, holy crap, what is a DCF? Like, what is a VC? What is investment banking? What is Goldman Sachs? I was like, what are all these things that everyone seemingly seems to know except for me? I feel like what made me fall in love with Daomi's character was her absolute grittiness and her willingness to learn. I've been in the same position where I just had to read and read and read and understand all these things that everyone seems to know. I feel like a lot of people thought that Daomi's character was too stagnant, but in a way, I feel like Daomi's character was just so core to her in the beginning. Gritty, strong, hardworking, maybe a little bit of idealistic girl, and I feel like kind of similar to a really good startup idea, she just needed Sandbox as that accelerator to just kind of fully blossom and bloom. So I felt like even though she didn't have like this like huge character arc or character shift like her sister NJ did, I think that doesn't take away from like the core of who she is and just how strong of a character she is. So I have so much respect for her. Okay, the third topic is the team and the supporting characters. I absolutely love the 5-person Samsung Tech team and the team development with the side characters. I think in a way I was more excited to see the entire team together after their 3-year stint in Silicon Valley than just seeing like Dosan and Daomi get together, obviously. Having experience as a business major, I had my fair share of being on really, really good teams and really bad teams, and it makes a world of the difference. And I think that's what hits home to me as well, because I have been on really, really great teams where I just genuinely love all the people, and it makes it so easy to, you know, just pull all-nighters, like spit out stupid ideas on a whiteboard and just enjoy every moment of it. And you want to be there when it's hard, you want to be there when you're sleep deprived, just because you love the core of what the team does and what the team stands for. That's why I was so happy to see kind of this team bond form, if that makes any sense. I think even the side characters like Saha and Chosun were very, very like well developed, and I really like the fact that Saha kind of fell for Chosun even before his like whole Silicon Valley glow up. So it shows that she really did like him for just the essence of him. One thing that was kind of weird to me was like the 5th character and his whole storyline, because I felt like the writers gave him that like weird subplot line with Mr. Han and the whole brother situation just to make him feel more interconnected to the entire situation. And I honestly felt like that was a bit unnecessary, because at first when it came out, I thought it was like this whole big deal that it was going to play a bigger role in this drama, like the way they portrayed it, like this guy in like a hood and you couldn't see his face, and like there was like the whole like flower tying and this ominous vibe. Like I thought this was going to be like some like secondary opposing force in the drama, but then it just ended up being like him and his weird like lashing out against Mr. Han, which I thought was weird because he was kind of inherently accepting help from Mr. Han this entire period of time. Like, why lash out now about this thing regarding his brother, right? I feel like this is something like dramas like Crash Landing on You did a really, really good job on, such as with like the 4 Army Boys and Captain Ree, where these characters didn't necessarily need to have their own storyline to be so well loved by the audience, just because we just love them for the character and who they are. Okay, 4th topic, Dosan's character and Dosan versus Mr. Han. This is probably the most debated topic of people reviewing this drama. I felt like the community sentiment is very much so pro Mr. Han, which I can totally see, but I definitely do think that we should give Dosan a little bit more credit. I also think that fundamentally the way that Dosan and Mr. Han show and express their love or their love language is very, very different. Initially for Mr. Han, it was very much so just words. But for Dosan, it was always actions. And I think the reason why a lot of people think it makes no sense for Dosan to end up with Downey is because I feel like the writers didn't emphasize strong enough the initial reason why Dosan went to Downey at the networking event. I think it was so set up for us in the mind to almost believe that, you know, Dosan did this whole thing just because he thought this would help Samsung Tech get somewhere. However, there was one scene where it was Dosan reading Downey's letters and he was so touched by them that he just decided to go to the networking event anyways, you know, get a suit, go on a bike, get a haircut. Like, I feel like he totally didn't have to do that. Like, Mr. Han didn't promise him anything, but he just did that anyways because her words spoke so strongly to him in a way. Like, even at the end of the drama, Mr. Han says something super powerful. He says, you know, I wrote and read her letters and after 15 years, I didn't do anything about it. But for Dosan, the moment he read the letters, he ran to her. And I think that is the most fucking K-drama thing ever, but it makes sense. Another thing is from a guy's perspective, like talking to a guy friend who also watched it, he was like, this happens in real life all the time. I'm like, what do you mean this happens in real life all the time? But he was like, you know, a guy can check all of the boxes. Like, you know, Mr. Han has status, he has wealth, he has like a nice car, he has always been there for the girl, but sometimes that just doesn't cut it because the girl will still have more chemistry with someone else. Even I thought it was funny, like the last time Dosan asked like Downey, like, what do you like about me? And I'm like, ooh, what answer is she gonna give now? Like, is it gonna change? Like, what is she actually going to like about him? And then she was like, I just like you. And I'm like, huh? I was like, girl, are you sure you like this man? Like, are you sure? But after reflecting upon it, especially from like a girl's perspective myself, I do realize that actually, like, as weird as it sounds, like, makes sense, because sometimes you just know and you feel something is right, that it's right. Like, girls think they have like all these check boxes, like this guy has to fit like X, Y, Z, and then someone else comes and just like completely like dismisses all of that, and you just feel that inherent connection. And honestly, I feel like that is, as sad as it is like more realistic, and that is real life. Like, things like this happen. Minus, like, you know, like whole crazy like letter shit, but like that never happens in real life. This may not seem realistic for a lot of people, but honestly, like, chemistry is more important than you think it is. I think in the end, it is actually pretty realistic that sometimes in real life, chemistry can override certain things like, you know, money, wealth, status, or even just someone being there for the girl. Sometimes that just doesn't cut it, as sad and disappointing it is for a lot of guys. Like, this drama is probably infuriating for a lot of guys out there who kind of are in Mr. Han's position. I also think it's really funny, the whole like Dosan's like big hands thing, because I'm sure the Korean writers didn't intend for it, but in American culture, like having like big hands definitely means, like, you know, you're also big down there, which is like a really, really funny thing to think about. So Downey definitely knows what's up, but I'm sure definitely like the conservative Korean writers definitely did not think that through. I honestly feel like I would be more team Mr. Han if Downey showed more chemistry and feelings for him. Because honestly, in my view, I feel like Downey was never really confused, because I feel like there was never really a scene where you see like the chemistry between Downey and Mr. Han really grow. Even after she found out that Mr. Han was the one that was writing her the letters all along, and I think that is the drama's biggest flaw, because I thought she would at least have some sort of feels, but it was almost portrayed very clearly that Dosan has always been the right answer in her mind. But I guess to give Dosan more credit, I think I absolutely love the storyline of Dosan developing Nungyu for the grandma. I do think that Dosan acts more on his feelings, and I think that is almost portrayed as recklessness in the drama. He thinks and he does, and in a way, I think that is at the core of what captured Downey's heart. However, I do feel like Dosan's character development could be better developed because I feel like Mr. Han was actually the accelerator to Dosan finding his confidence. And I felt like it would have been much better if kind of Dosan came to his own about growing his confidence and kind of understanding that he has turned a misunderstanding into a reality. And I think that that would have been definitely more powerful in terms of Dosan's character. Okay, topic 5, let's talk about NJ. NJ was such a well-written character. Like, you can hate her 1 second and feel so bad for her the next second. Like, coming from a business school background, especially one where it was hyper competitive, like people such as NJ pulling like a trick, like using the girl on a swing story to get herself into sandbox is not an uncommon thing. It's a very common thing out there in the business world of people just kind of, you know, in a way kind of backstabbing each other. And that is something that I can really relate to. And I guess like for me as a business major, I feel, or maybe sometimes hate NJ a little bit more instinctively because I know what it kind of feels like to deal with people like that. But it's also very, very hard to hate her because deep down inside she has this like warm, softer side of her. But I feel like in a way I also can relate to her a lot and respect her a lot for the fact that she left her stepdad and she was like, no, I don't want your money, I don't want your status, I don't want your help and support, and kind of grow something on her own. And that is such boss ass bitch, like you fucking go girl. Realistically, being in NJ's shoes, like life is so much fucking easier if you have all the connections and all that jazz, but she just chose to choose her own path, and I feel like that was such a big point of character development. I feel like in a way she kind of has the Mr. Han complex where she's super hard on the outside but she kind of has this softer inside because in a way that was how she was raised, right? She was taught by her mom that certain decisions that you make in life have to be strategic in order to have the best future, etc., etc. But deep down inside, she does have the emotional part of her, and she was the one who came clean to Miss Yoon herself about lying on the application. And also that last scene of her finally visiting the grandma, even though the grandma's vision is gone, it was just so heartwarming, and I bawled like a baby at that scene as well. Okay, last segment is gonna be this K-drama business world sin section because there are a lot of things that definitely like made the business world just like, it just doesn't, it's not realistic in real life. So the first obvious sin is starting a startup is not as easy as it seems. Like I've seen the startup space a little bit during my time at Penn, and it's 100% not just like, oh, we want to do this AI solution, let me code something and voila, it works. It definitely does not work that way. Like getting into an accelerator is not that easy. Getting funding is not that easy. Getting connected with investors is not that easy. Like the real life equivalent of Sandbox would probably be something like Y Combinator. But definitely you can't get into like a program like Y Combinator, which is having like hopes and dreams, as sad it is realistic. That's kind of how things are. You have to have like a plan, you have to have, you know, a vision for your company that actually is profitable. And the second thing is Mr. Han is like a MD supposedly at this VC firm or fund, but he still has like all the time in the world to do all these like random shit. And I think that's just like highly unrealistic. Like he should be like taking meetings, taking calls, talking to companies, but instead he's like doing all this other like weird shit, which is funny. And I also think that definitely if he's really like a hotshot MD VC, he would also have a better office. So that was kind of like funny too. The third thing is like just the future state of like AI and, you know, like AV, like all that is like so just unrealistic. And I remember like when they launched the company, like at the end, like the end scene was like 2020, and I was like, oh my god, this is like definitely not the 2020 I was envisioning, because everyone's be wearing like masks, but in the drama like things were like popping, like AI is like now all of a sudden a thing. And definitely like autonomous vehicles are not at the point where the K-drama has portrayed them. Of course, like companies like Google have worked on projects such as Waymo and using LiDAR and all this other shit. It's now in the very, very beginning stages, but definitely like the software doesn't run as smoothly as like they've been like portraying in the test drives and the test runs. they're too far into the future than what is actually going on currently in the industry. Lastly, to give the drama some points for business wins, I would say what they did depict very well is kind of like that hackathon environment. Even though I personally have not been to a hackathon, I've been to things called a case competition, which is a very, very similar vibe of like you just having to like grind out something like in 24 hours, like pitch it to like a panel of judges, and this whole environment set up to kind of like foster and grow young people, and having that good team dynamic or initial team struggles is very, very much realistic, and the whole like kind of like tension between like the different teams like is also very realistic. Like when you go to these competitions, it's always like you know like who's good and like who you're going up against. Also, yeah, at these things there is a shit ton of food, so totally realistic and relatable. Very much so like well-funded programs. Whole experience was portrayed very well, and there are actually programs out there in the world that do help young people develop these like innovative ideas for the hope of a better future. So definitely that part is realistic, so definitely Startup did a really good job on that. So yeah, overall I feel like I was just so excited to finally see a K-drama that was very like business oriented and related, because like I feel like that is just so relatable for me as a business major. So definitely cool to see like all the classic like K-drama tropes play out, but in context of a world that I reside in professionally, not necessarily startups, but in the business world. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. I know it's kind of a bit of a random video, but if you like more K-drama reviews, please leave a comment down below and subscribe and like this video, and let me know if you have any other K-dramas that I should watch and give a review on. So yeah, that's it. Sorry for the random video drop again, but for now, take care guys, and yeah, make sure you find a guy with big hands. Bye.